Rachel and Ashleigh Q&A session. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's the new intro.
I think that is
I worked on
amazing.
it. I worked on it really hard.
That is amazing.
I practiced my vocals all day. Okay.
You should have told me. I would have got my guitar out.
Do you play guitar?
I do not play guitar, but Alex has a guitar.
Okay, well that just made it even better because I'm like, I don't sing and you don't play guitar, so me singing and you playing guitar would be an amazing intro. So we should probably just do that. Yeah, we should definitely do that. Next time we're together, we'll have a couple margaritas and we'll God.
I was literally, while we were kind of in between, what the freak did I just say? I was going to text you and be like, one day we should just, I literally wrote it out and then I didn't send it. Like 5 minutes ago, I was like, I know we don't usually drink, but we should just get drunk and record a podcast. But then I didn't send it. And you just read my mind.
I support this so wholeheartedly. And I think it would be better because we barely drink, because I think you and I would have like 1 or 2 drinks each and it would just loosen us up just enough to make that podcast real good. We might have to put like an explicit warning on it. Totally fine. I support this. So
it would be even cooler if we could do it in person.
Yeah. Well,
it's been like a million years.
I think that's a smart idea. I think that the next time that should be like one of the main goals of the next time we're in the same place is get a little tipsy, record a podcast. It is out. Wait,
are we going to be together in May?
Well, I'm very much hoping that we are. I still don't have my plans solidified, but I think that would be amazing. And I think we just have to figure out a place to record a podcast in New York, but I think it would be super
My parents'
fun.
living room. It's fine. We'll make it work.
Great. Done. Okay. All right. Getting drunk, recording a podcast now. Let's get to the work at hand, which is we have a couple questions that we got from Instagram that I think are valuable, good ones that we get asked a lot. Yes. So this is going to be a short podcast. We may not get through many, but we're going to try to get through a couple. And what was the first one that you had that was good?
So the first one is these are from Instagram, from Susan Wildy. Sorry if I said that wrong. She said, how do you choose which direction to go if you need to lose weight, but want to build muscle?
Yeah, it's a really good question because it's an incredibly common pairing, right? Like I would say the majority of my clients, for sure, not all certainly, but the majority, that's what they want to do. They want to build muscle and lose fat. So it's a really good question because it's something that comes up a lot. And, as always, it depends. You got to put that caveat in there because it does depend. It does depend on a bunch of things. I would say, generally speaking, like if we're talking about the average client who is maybe by their standards or by some kind of generic overarching standards, a couple pounds overweight, or could lose, anywhere from 10 to 30 pounds of body fat, right? And be within this healthy range. And they want to do it for aesthetic reasons. They want to do it for, physical, like they just want to look better, but also maybe they want to perform better. Maybe they want to climb up the stairs or go for a run more easily. So, it's not like they're looking to lose 100 pounds. They're losing, whatever. And they want to build muscle for the same reasons, to look good, to perform better, to work on some physical goals. I personally like the approach of focusing on muscle building first, because it makes the secondary job of losing fat easier. And you're kind of doing both. Whereas it's very easy to program a plan to lose fat that does not in any way make you stronger, put muscle tissue on your body, build muscle, or make you healthier. So the approach of kind of improving health and lean muscle mass and physical fitness first really, I think, makes a lot of common sense and also just appeals to me from like an overall health and functional fitness perspective. So I would tell most people, again, there may be some extenuating circumstances, and maybe if you do have a lot of fat to lose, maybe you focus on like walking and food management and all of those things. But for the vast majority of us, getting in the gym and lifting weights and moving your body and building muscle and focusing on nourishing your body to do that work and it's also more fun too. And it's a better kind of like mental headspace to be in. So for all of those reasons, I think it's more sustainable and you're going to see progress and it's going to make you happy. And it's this positive goal instead of I'm making myself smaller. I have to restrict, I have to lose fat. You're thinking I'm building muscle, I'm getting stronger, I'm learning these skills. And you'll see that you start to fit in your clothes better. Your body shape might look better. You might start seeing muscles. You might start seeing performance gains, and that's going to feel so good. And it's going to propel you to keep going. And all the while you are building muscle that is this great metabolic currency that's helping you lose fat. You're moving your body more. It's helping you lose fat. So long story short, I could go on, but I think generally speaking, my advice, go for the muscle building first. And go through like a solid few months at least of that being your main focus before you go into any kind of fat loss cycle.
Yeah. It's funny. I heard there was a program that two people put together.
I heard that too.
Like did something about muscle building for women somewhere sometime.
Yeah, I heard it's really good and everyone should take it.
Yeah. No, in all seriousness, that you can you can literally go and see the transformations from our muscle science forum program, metflexlife.com/MSW. You'll see that there's a bunch of, before and after pictures and testimonials of women who came into the program with their main goal to focus on building muscle. And just like, I don't even need to talk about it, just go look at those photos and you'll see they were able to transform their body composition with the main focus of building muscle. And it speaks for itself. And we've recorded podcasts in the past on that. So we don't have to like dive into all the toned and what that means and what that looks like, because we've done that many times in the past. But if you haven't heard those podcasts, those are great. So go back and look on, they're on both our podcasts, I believe. So yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that, again, it depends where you're coming from, but overall, if you can focus on getting strong and for most women who are asking this question, at least from my experience, they have spent too much time restricting, and not fueling appropriately, not recovering appropriately to build the muscle that will give you the look that you want. Because there's no muscle, there's no tone, there's no lean, there's nothing. It's just blah. So yeah, I like it. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Good answer. I have this one over here too, that's related. It's the similar question about, is this the one I think that was coming next? I want to ask it so you can answer it. Is it when you're just starting out, figuring out how to track your food and stuff like that, is it best to track calories first or macros, and why?
Yeah. So I'm going to be in the category, or not the category, that's the wrong word, in the camp of saying that I would much rather you start off by at least tracking protein and calories versus just tracking calories. Because yes, all calories are created equal in a mathematical standpoint, but from a actual standpoint or physiological standpoint, there actually aren't, because protein process is different in your body, fat process is different in your body, carbohydrates process different in your body. Processed food versus whole foods go through a different process in your body. So yes, although the calories technically are equal, they are not equal in the sense of how they go through their processes. I just completely confused probably everybody, but do you understand what I mean?
I do understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I think what you're saying is that like a lot of people get hung up on the calories in, calories out, and that is a component and it does factor in, but it also depends on what kind of calories you're taking in. And again, historically, women generally restrict calories. So they're taking in very little calories and they're thinking, how am I not losing weight if I'm only eating 1,500 calories? It's because maybe they're all carbs. Maybe it's all like this high glycemic stuff that's making your blood sugar go up and down and like crazy, and your hormones are all out of whack. So it is possible for you to undereat and hold on to fat or even gain fat. But if, like you said, and I think that's a really good idea, is if you're going to track calories, also track protein. Protein should always be the foundation of your diet. And it should always be something that you're sort of aware of, that you're getting this like good intake of protein every time you eat, because that does make a difference. Like 2,000 calories of diet foods and 100-calorie packs of mini Oreos and stuff is not the same as 2,000 calories of high quality protein and vegetables. So yes, that does make a difference. But I will also add, if the question is, should you track macros or track calories when you're first starting out? The question also before that is, what are you tracking for? What is the purpose? Because not everyone is looking to gain muscle. Not everyone is looking to lose fat. Some people are like, I have no energy, or my digestion's all messed up, or I think I eat too much, but I'm not sure, or whatever. So then in that case, there may be a different answer, because some people, you know, just want to know, like maybe they think they're eating enough protein and they're actually eating 30 grams of protein a day. So maybe in that case, tracking macros is going to be helpful for you, because the calorie thing doesn't matter as much right now. What matters is figuring out actually what you're eating and how it's stacking up. And, you know, are you super deficient in a macro, right? So I think a lot of times we are in such a rush to get to the answer. We don't like fully form the question in our heads yet first, because that question is good, but it depends on what your goal is and what answers you're trying to elicit. So yeah,
100%. And I would say too, like, if you're going to try, there's different, and I like to also break this down into different tiers. Like if you're, whatever your goal is, if you are going to track, like you said, you don't necessarily have to track every single macronutrient, but there's different tiers to that. So like you could start off tracking calories if you're just trying to get an overall gauge of that. But then I would definitely transition into the tracking protein as well, because that's super important. But there's different tiers to that too, and different ways that you can track. It's not all about like, okay, pulling up your app and tracking all these things. It's like, oh, maybe like you said, I just, you know, write down what I'm eating, or I have a food journal, or I start to take pictures of my food to get an idea of that. So there's so many different ways to start off with tracking. But one thing I will say, and you know, this is, I believe that we talked a little bit about this in our intuitive eating podcast as well. So if you haven't listened to that yet, go ahead and go back and listen to that. I was going to say, I'll link it in the show notes, but who knows? It might be in the show notes, might not be. Just search intuitive eating on one of our podcasts.
You never know.
But anyway, so I think we talked about this, but one of the most powerful things that you can have in your quote unquote toolbox is knowing what your food's made of, right? Like, what is this food? And this is something that we think, like, especially if you're listening to this podcast and maybe you've been tracking your food for a long time. So it's like natural to you. You're like, yeah, everybody should know what's a protein. Like everybody should know what's a carb. Everybody should know what's a fat, but that's not reality oftentimes. So if you are someone who's still like, I don't necessarily know like what foods are mostly fats, what foods are mostly carbs, what foods are mostly protein. So if you don't know that, then I would say that's where we need to start. Because if you have an overall awareness and knowledge of what the different foods are made of, that's going to allow you to just progress so much more in what you're doing. Especially, you know, if you do track for a little while of time, right? If you're tracking all the macros just to kind of see what these foods are made of, then you get that education, and that stays with you forever, right? You have that knowledge, that whatever we talk about, muscle memory. It's kind of like that. Like you have that food memory knowledge, right? That's in there. You know, moving forward forever, like, okay, this sweet potato is mostly carbs, or this specific food is mostly fat, or whatever it is. So you're building up that knowledge, right, over time. So I think that is an important component that people might not think about. Maybe they hear, oh, I need to like track macros, and it's more, they think more of the restriction side of it, or the complexity side of things. But if you do it for a little bit, you will learn a lot. And I think that's something that people tend to miss out on when it comes to tracking macros. It's like, it can be a huge education and awareness piece that will help you, you know, tremendously forever. So something to think about in that regard.
Yep, I agree. Great tool. Always think about protein first, regardless of what you're doing. I think is a good takeaway. Protein is always important. You should always be eating it and knowing that you're like in the ballpark of eating enough protein.
For sure. Let's see. We have another question from Coach Jen Health Design. What are signs you aren't eating enough carbs to support your training?
Signs you aren't eating enough carbs. There's a lot of signs. The one thing that I will say though, again, from experience, is that a lot of the signs that you aren't eating enough carbs could also be signs of other things. So it's easy, if you are experiencing any of these things, it's easy to just eat some more carbs and see if that fixes the problem. It may not though, right? So like, you know, because again, some symptoms could be anything. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say like, well, that's yeah, because it does make it kind of difficult. Because like I was gonna say things like being hangry, having like energy crashes, feeling hungry all the time. But those could also mean you're not eating enough in general. It could also be fixed by eating more fat. It could be fixed by eating more protein. I think it goes back to like maybe there isn't a really clear, concise like list of symptoms that mean you are not eating enough carbs, because I don't know, it's dependent on the person, it's dependent on how busy you are, it's dependent on your hormones, it's dependent on all these things. But carbs are a really great tool that shouldn't be demonized, that you can play with and adjust if you are experiencing these symptoms. So if you're super active and you're, you know, on your feet all day for work and you do these crazy hardcore workouts, or you're training for something and you're running an hour a day, or you're weightlifting an hour a day, or you've got, you know, chances are you should probably be eating some carbs. Like most people are not going to be optimized by eating a 0 carb diet under those circumstances. If you are not an overweight person and you are working very hard and you're very physically active, chances are you probably can and should tolerate some carbs in your diet, right? So if you're eating hardly any and you're busting your ass all day long and you're trying to build muscle, you're trying to work at something very hard, chances are like carbs could help you. So if you feel like the person writing this might be having this experience, like there might be somewhere in her brain or her client or something where she's like, I feel like this person or me needs to eat more carbs. If you have that intuitive sense, just eat some more carbs and see. Just pick some good carbs, pick some kabocha squash, pick some baby corns, whatever it is.
Oh my God.
Eat. Oh God. If you've listened to another podcast, you'll know how I feel about baby corns. That might be a new theme in our podcast or podcasting.
Oh
anyway,
God.
But it's not so hard, right? Like and there's different ways you can incorporate it too. Like it's always great to maybe, if you know you have a hard workout coming up, like maybe the meal before, incorporate some good carbs that you enjoy, that you know you tolerate well. I tell a lot of, for some clients, if you are super lean and you're eating a really restrictive diet, I sometimes suggest that people put some good quality carb sources in their dinner, because that can help them have a better quality sleep. It can kind of help like move you through that like long period of fasting that you're about to go through. Some people do better having like a big, heavy, but like a big solid breakfast, and maybe there's some carbs in it because it's fueling you for the day. But just, I guess the answer is, if you have any negative like energy, low energy, or any symptoms about sugar crashes or fogginess or low energy or hunger or performance plateaus, anything like that, it's really simple to just add in some carbs and see if it helps. Right?
Yeah. Especially if you're, like you said, I feel like the person asking this question is probably coming from that lower carb, maybe keto area. And they're like, oh, like, how do I know if I need more carbs? Like if I'm eating low carb, and like you said, just, you know, adding some back in, there's a lot of different signs and symptoms that can be like red flags that, you know, if you've been eating low carb keto for a long time, like maybe it's time to bring carbs back in. I mean, I have an entire YouTube channel on this. But one thing I think that you mentioned too is just like eating enough in general too is one of the biggest things that we tend to blame it on specific macronutrients, especially like hormone fluctuations and hormone issues. People tend to blame a lot of those on whether you're eating enough carbs or whether you're eating enough fat or other things that are going on. But a lot of the time, stress reduction and eating enough high quality food, those two things, stress management and eating enough food, those simple things can make a world of difference when it comes to hormone issues, right? Another thing to think about too, and I know this is real because this is what I went through for many years myself, and this is what I help my clients, a lot of my clients work through, is that carb phobia. carb phobia is a real thing. It is something that, especially if you're coming from low carb or keto for a long period of time and you had a lot of success with it, but now you're getting to a point where maybe it's not so successful anymore. Introducing carbs can be scary, right? From a psychological standpoint, it can be scary. And that's something that, you have to work through. I would say if it's something that you are, and I use this example all the time. Like I used to be scared to eat a sweet potato, right? Or a piece of fruit. Literally, like psychologically, like if I eat this sweet potato, I'm going to gain 5 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a real thing. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about transitioning into more metabolic flexibility and all of that. But I would say start slow, get help, have someone there to guide you along the way, be strategic about it. Like the first place that I would start to add some carbs in, and first obviously start with whole foods. But like you said, around your workout or before bed can be 2 great areas to start to experiment with, but you just have to start. You just have to start. Mm-hmm. You can start small and titrate up depending on how things are going for you. Everybody's different. Everybody's going to react differently, but carb phobia is a real thing, just like fat phobia was a real thing and still is for some people. So, be kind to yourself in that regard, right? Just realize that you are not alone. And, just start slow. That would be the biggest thing. Start slow. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And yeah.
Eat some carbs.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more. I have one more quick question if we can do it in like a couple minutes. Because I have some feelings about it. I have some thoughts and feelings about it. Yeah, we aren't the most concise talkers because we like to talk. We like to talk. We have feelings and thoughts and opinions. Okay. What are the pros and cons of caffeine and or pre-workout? I have a feeling, I don't know if you and I kind of disagree on this.
I think I think it's a sliding scale, but I also think that we could probably record a whole podcast.
Okay, well, let's
do a little glimpse into it, and then like maybe we can just do like a whole one on it.
Okay. Can I just say my quick thoughts?
Yeah,
you're gonna say some like scientific, reasonable stuff. I'm just gonna tell you some emotional feelings that I have right now that I want to get out. Because lately I feel like I've been having a lot of clients too who are like asking about food and nutrition tweaks and things they should do for like improved energy and stuff. And I'm noticing a lot of people drinking a lot of coffee. Mm-hmm. So here are some thoughts. My very quick thought about pre-workout is that I think it's bad and a waste of money and you shouldn't use it. I'm just going to say it. I'm not like here to judge anybody, but if you ask me, I don't think pre-workout should be a thing. I think it's really overpriced. And if you need energy, you should eat and sleep better and maybe drink coffee. Coffee is a pre-workout. It's caffeine. It will give you energy. Like people pay like $50 for a container like this of some stuff that makes your like scalp itch because they need, and a lot of it is like, it's like the ritual. It's like, okay, I'm going to the gym. I'm gonna have a hard workout. I need to get myself amped. Like maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm doing this first thing in the morning, all that stuff. I get it. Like I have an 8-month-old. I know what it feels like to go to the gym and have no energy, but I am not getting on the pre-workout bandwagon because again, it's a waste of your money. It's a crutch. And there are so many other things you should be doing in your life that will give you the energy to go crush a workout. So those are my feelings about pre-workout. Caffeine and coffee, I think, is great in moderation, especially if you tolerate it and enjoy it. It can also be a crutch, but it's up to you to decide, like, am I addicted to this? Is this hindering me? If I went without caffeine for 4 days, would I lose my mind? Like, that's up to you to decide. But caffeine and coffee and green tea and all these other good sources of caffeine, dark chocolate, they have health benefits and they're fine. And if they give you energy and you enjoy them, it's good. The one thing I will say about coffee, though, is that I notice a lot of people using it in place of food. So I know a lot of women who are like, I have no energy and I'm worried that I'm not eating enough, but I drink 4 cups of black coffee for breakfast and I don't eat until 1. I'm like, eat some food then, like eat some food. Don't drink 4 cups of black coffee because that's giving you your energy without calories, but it's also affecting your cortisol. It's affecting your adrenal system. It's like, you're definitely building a like tolerance to it when you're drinking that much. And if you know that you have energy issues and that you're probably under eating and you're trying to build muscle, like the basic gist is don't use caffeine and coffee as a replacement for actual nourishing food that's going to provide you with that energy. So Yeah. Coffee's great. Don't
Yeah.
overdo it. Pre-workout's a waste of money. Eat food and sleep. The end.
So I agree with probably all of that.
Okay.
But I do have like some opinions for certain things. So just talking about pre-workout, for example, I think absolutely, like if you don't have your other ducks in a row and you're just slapping pre-workout or extra caffeine on top of things, like, yeah, maybe it'll help for one session or something like that, but it's not gonna, like, you're gonna burn out real quick if that's your approach. I do think that just based off my research within certain supplements and within, if you're getting a pre-workout that is legitimate, which is hard to come by, it's going to have some ingredients in there that can be beneficial from a nootropic standpoint. So things like alpha GPC, some nootropics within that. There is a lot of research on beta alanine as a performance enhancer within that, but also realize too, and there's some other, I'm not going to dive into all the specifics here. We actually have a full lecture in the Muscle Science Forum program going through each of these ingredients and the efficacious doses of them, because most pre-workouts out there are just going to be loaded with a crap ton of caffeine, and then they'll have like these other ingredients on the label, and they'll be like a pinch of this and a pinch of that. And this is just coming back to all supplements, like do your own research, understand the efficacious doses, understand what you're using it for and why you're using it. But for most people, a pre-workout is not going to be necessary. But for some people, if they have they have their nutrition dialed in, they are looking to enhance some things, different things within their performance, and that's their main goal right now. Like there are some pre-workouts that can be beneficial, in my opinion, in terms of some of the other ingredients that are not caffeine. So
could you also just take alpha GPC? Could you just take L-carnitine?
Yes.
Like all these things, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes. So different, like quote unquote pump factors and things like that to help with blood flow, things like that. You could absolutely take those separately. Like I literally have I have a pre-workout that I take sometimes if it's like a hard leg day and I'm like, I just need a little extra boost of some focus and a little bit, maybe it's like a high rep leg day. And so I want to get a little bit more blood flow, a little bit more pump. And this just gives me a little bit of an extra edge. But again, it's not replacing all the other things that we talked about. Yeah. But yes, you have to understand that. And this comes back to being educated on supplements in general and knowing what these ingredients are and knowing what an efficacious dose is, which is pretty rare, to be honest, in all the pre-workouts that you see on the market. Usually they're just pumped with like a shit ton of caffeine. Yeah. So one thing that I would say too is like a non-stim pre-workout. If you are wanting to experiment with pre-workouts, a non-stim pre-workout that doesn't have caffeine in it, that's where I would start, because then you can actually see like, is this really doing something for me? Or is it just the caffeine that's making me like go crazy? Right. So that's a quick way to kind of test if you are noticing any differences with a pre-workout like that. But in general, like you said, and we talk about this all the time, it's not going to replace sleep, right? It's not going to replace recovery. It's not going to, like, if you're going to burn out real quick, and it's not going to be a good situation. With caffeine, I would say, again, like caffeine can be great. It's the most popular ergogenic aid out there. But it can definitely be abused, and you can for sure become, what's the word? Dependent on it. And also its effects can diminish the more you have it, right? So you have different caffeine receptors in your body, and it's basically, the more you consume, the more your body gets used to it. And so the more you need to have that same feeling, right? Yeah. So, and then also, you can get into this endless cycle of, I'm having caffeine and then I'm not sleeping because I'm having the caffeine too late, and then I'm not sleeping, so I need more caffeine. And then it's just like this circle of craziness that occurs.
I was at a supplement store at one point, and I saw it was like some pre-workout, and I shit you not, the product was called Thrust. Okay. And this is not some like black marketplace. This was like a GNC. Okay. So yeah, avoid Thrust. Okay. But yeah, I think everything you're saying is right. And I think maybe one other thing is like, whatever you decide to do, whether it's caffeine or a pre-workout or Thrust or whatever it is, it's always smart to like cycle your supplements in a way that you do not become dependent on them, that you remember or realize or understand or see if it is still working, what it's doing. Even with like caffeine, like I'll go through, I hate to do it because I just love coffee so much, but I, first of all, make sure that I don't drink too much to begin with, even though I want to drink it all day long. And I'll also go through like weeks where I'm like, I'm not going to drink coffee and maybe I will have a headache the first day, but that means I've been drinking too much. And it's just like a reminder, you don't want to become too dependent on any of this stuff. Like if we're not talking about life-saving medication, if you like are terrified of the idea of going to the gym without your pre-workout, like that's a sign that you're dependent on it. And it's not great. It's just not good to be too dependent on any of these things. So just, cycling 100%. And like not being too dependent on any of that stuff, I think is good. Watch out for Rachel and Ashleigh's new collaboration. We are creating a pre-workout called More.
No, we should call it
tomorrow.
Toned.
Oh yeah, that should have been an April Fool's thing we should have done. We should have created. Oh, we're doing that. We're doing that at some point. Right. Maybe in like next year when everyone forgets, we're gonna create a product and it's gonna be called Toned. Oh, it's so good. Okay.
Oh my God. And it's literally like, we should actually do this. It could be that just like,
we can trick people. Like we can call it Toned and make it pink. And then everyone's going to be like, oh, this is a new product and it's going to get me toned. And then like you peel back the cover and it's like, psych, this is, I don't know, nothing.
Nothing.
It's water. It's water and a piece of paper that tells you to go to sleep.
I love it. One thing though, just to mention too, sodium is a super underrated pre-workout, right? Because sodium helps with blood flow, helps with nutrient partitioning, things like that. So taking like, and I still do this, like taking just a quarter teaspoon of salt. Like if I use a pre-workout, which I don't often, like every once in a while, I'm going to be using a high quality pre-workout, and that high quality pre-workout is probably going to have a good amount of sodium in it because they know that sodium is important. But if you're not, and you're just having, coffee or whatever, having a little bit of salt, like a quarter teaspoon of salt right before you work out, chug it down with some water. That's great for helping with blood flow. It helps increase the pump, all that jazz. So sodium, just
all right. That's our new product. Cool. It's called Toned, and it's just salt water and a piece of paper that says go to sleep.
I love
it. We are geniuses. We are geniuses.
I think this
is how we're gonna make the big bucks. All right, that's it for today. Thank you as always for listening. We will do another Q&A, possibly drunk at some point in the future.
Oh my God.
Stay tuned.